Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد. So we've now just come past the point of the expedition to Khaybar, and there is a very important story that occurs, sort of like the story is mentioned in the Seerah, and it doesn't have a specific date because it happens during a period of time. And specifically, this time is between the Treaty of Hudaybiyah and the conquest of Makkah. What happened was Muhammad ﷺ had dispatched missionaries or ambassadors to the kings or the tyrants in the regions around the Arabian Peninsula. But one thing to make clear is that Muhammad ﷺ, even from the time when he was in Makkah, continuously sent out messages and communications to various tribal leaders, in various locations to invite them towards Islam. And that's one thing that strikes out to me, that when somebody comes in towards Islam or the religion is new, we have this thing that, we should keep Islam to ourselves, or we should only focus on our families, or we should just focus on our friends. But here, clearly, Muhammad ﷺ, when the message came down to him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was already spreading that message around. Now, obviously, a lot of people can make the argument diplomatically, politically, economically, does that make even any sense? It's just the birth of a religion. What position does he have? The key thing to remember here is that Muhammad ﷺ doesn't decide or get to decide how the religion of Allah is spread. When Allah orders us to do something, we do it. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ orders us to do something, we do it. Wa'atiullah wa'ati Rasul. So this is a religion that is ordained to humankind by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala under the trust of Muhammad ﷺ. So when the religion is given to the Prophet and then the religion is given to us, it is ordered upon us, it's incumbent upon us to spread that religion to everyone else. You do not get to decide who you pick and choose. You don't get to decide whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. What you do get to decide is the means and styles of how you want to deliver that. And what I mean by that is, doesn't mean that you can grab someone off the street, sit him down and have a full-out conversation about proof of God or how the Quran is the word of God. This can be advocated intentionally by the actions that you do, doing good deeds, showing them the advocation of Islam and what it represents. This is a very powerful form of dawah, and we know that many people converted towards Islam during the time of Muhammad ﷺ just merely by the actions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So when we think about this aspect of Islam, what was really striking was the fact that how Muhammad ﷺ did not wait to spread the message of Islam, and he just touched upon everyone in terms of spreading that message. But specifically, in terms of homing on in the really senior leadership around the Arabian Peninsula, Muhammad ﷺ concentrated on several kings, several leaders in and around the Arabian Peninsula between the time when the Treaty of Hudaybiyah happened and before the conquest of Makkah. What's the other reason why he done it during this period? You see, we talked about this before. Treaty of Hudaybiyah is mentioned so many times in the history books. It's mentioned so many times in the Seerah. It's mentioned many times in conversations and debates. And that is because it is a significant milestone in the event and the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Because what Treaty of Hudaybiyah done was allow the Muslims to buy time, even though they were the underdogs in a land, in an arena where they were not the powerful, they were not the controlling factor, they were nothing but the underdog. But it gave them the ability, it gave them the time and the space to spread the dawah without getting to any confrontation. So the Treaty of Hudaybiyah is about calling a truce between the Muslims and the enemies so they would not attack you economically, politically, physically. You would prevent them from doing this by having a truce. And that gave Muhammad ﷺ the ability to spread the dawah and also to implement Islam in many different forms. Hence why he took Khaybar. If he didn't have the Treaty of Hudaybiyah and he went for Khaybar, where the Jews were, who do you think would have turned up to assist the people of Khaybar? It would have been the Quraysh, and Muhammad again would have been outnumbered. So everything was strategically placed, and it's just amazing how Muhammad how he thinks and how he plans ahead of the game. So one, it's not up to him to decide who he spreads the dawah to. He has to spread the dawah to everyone, because that is the duty of every messenger, every prophet that came before Muhammad, and that applies to Muhammad. And secondly, he has to spread this deen because it's not up to him who changes, who converts. That is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All he does, he takes the seeds of Islam and he throws it out onto that land, and then he waits to see which one will fertilize, which one will actually seed, and which will fertilize and grow into something. So during this period, and specifically maybe even after the Battle of Mu'tah, here we find that Muhammad, when he was in Medina, he started sending out these missionaries, or started sending out these ambassadors to various kings. Now I'm going to home into three particular stories in where Muhammad has sent these missionaries. So one was, and if you know, in the Arabian Peninsula, and I'm going to try and share the screen here as well, so you can just kind of get an idea. So in this arena of the Arabian Peninsula, and if you can see that, just have a look. So here you have, here you have the Muslim land, right? Where the Arabs are in the Arabian Peninsula. Further north, you have Syria. Let me see if I can just get my my annotation pen from somewhere. If you can see that, sorry, can you see it now? So here, look, this is the area of the Muslims, and here you see Medina, and here you see Makkah. Okay, this region here, about here, is controlled by the Romans. Okay, very powerful nation. Okay, these were considered to be the most powerful nation at that time in the whole world. This region here was controlled by the Persians. Now, I want you to consider and think about them like Russia and America, okay, of today's political powers. This region here, the Arab Peninsula, is basically farmers, Bedouins, poor people, guys land with their camels, their sheep, and so forth. This area here, Yemen, is controlled by Persia, meaning by the king and the leader of Persia, who is Khosrow. And this area here, Ethiopia, at that time was known as Abyssinia. Okay, so this is where the Negus controlled this region. So this, if I put here across, that's a Christian state. Romans, Christian state. These, pagans. Okay, so that's a pagan state. That is also a pagan state where Yemen is, and this region of where you see Saudi, the Arab region, is also a pagan land. Okay, which is now being influenced by Islam. So what Muhammad ﷺ had done, he sent a message here to the Roman Empire, to Caesar. He sent a message here to the Persian Empire, to Khosrow. He also sent a message down here to the kings of Yemen, who were under the control of the Persians. And he also sent a message here to the Abyssinian nation, which was Negus, who he already had a good relationship. Okay, and he also sent a message to the king of Alexandria in Egypt as well. So here you can see clearly how Muhammad ﷺ has spread the message to everyone to see the response. So here Muhammad ﷺ sent messages out to the tyrants, and obviously to the Negus, who wasn't a tyrant, who was a very supportive Muhammad ﷺ. So let's concentrate on one particular story, okay? I want to focus on this particular story of how Muhammad ﷺ sent a message out to the Roman Empire. So over here, right? So what happened was Muhammad ﷺ has sent a missionary down to the Roman Empire, and they came there and they dispatched a letter. Now, during this time, what happened was if I just stop sharing for a second, what happened during this time, the Romans and the Persians were consistently always at war with each other, exactly the same. Americans and the Russians, if it's not physical war, if it's not the Cold War, it's economical battle, it's political battle. You'll always find the biggest country. Now it's probably America and China and Russia. But what you always see is they're always constantly at each other. And the Quran mentions this as well, that how the two superpowers, the Romans and the Persians, that they keep fighting against each other. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives control to the Romans, then sometimes he gives control to the Persians. And in history, even before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will see that there will be a 5 to a 10-year period where the Romans will be in control and then the Persians will be in control. The idea was to dominate their religion. The Romans wanted to spread the religion of Christianity to all the regions as much as possible. And the Persians wanted to spread the religion of their fire worshipping, their paganism to much of these areas. And we know that the Arabian region had big influence from the Persians because of the fact that they were pagans, and Yemen also. So during this period, the Caesar, remember Caesar is the name of the leader of the Roman Empire, Caesar had just won his war, his super battle against the Persians, and he had kicked out all of the Persians from his land. And the Persians, when they beat the Roman Christians beforehand, they even took, I don't know if you've ever seen them in the movie, but there's always one special cross, one special crucifix that symbolizes for their whole nation. They actually had stolen that and taken it back to Persia. So when they fought with the Persians, they took this cross back and they reestablished their authority across this region, and they kicked out all the Persians. When the Romans win, the leaders of the Roman Empire always make their way to the holy city, Jerusalem, right? As you know it. And as they go to the city, they always pay homage to their land. So Caesar took a journey and he went to this, he went to the area of Jerusalem so that he can pay homage to effectively Allah, to God, to give thanks to, in terms of what he had, of the victory that was given to him. So he lived in an area in Syria, which was the Roman Empire, called Hims. That's where his palace was. And he traveled all the way to Jerusalem to pay homage and to do his prayer. When he arrived in Jerusalem, he came to an area called Aliyah, and there he did his prayer. Overnight, he stayed there. And the hadith talks about how he received a dream. Some say that he didn't necessarily receive a dream, but he was at night looking at the stars. And the next day, he was in a very bad mood. And his direct leadership came to him, and they noticed that he was very upset. And they didn't understand why he was upset. So they asked him, "What is it that bothers you, Caesar?" And he said to them, "Did you not see last night the Mulk al-Qitan?" And Mulk al-Qitan means that in the stars, he can see a pattern that resembles that there is a king or a leader from a region of the Arabian Peninsula that is going to ascend upon his own land. So Caesar himself, what was interesting, he was a soothsayer. So he practiced the art of reading into the future, or reading palmistry, or astronomy. So he would read the stars, and from the stars he got this message that there was a leader, there was a king in the Arabian Peninsula that was going to ascend upon him. But the way he described it, which was really interesting, is that he said that this king is a circumcised king. Now, this shocked the leaders of Caesar, and they said to Caesar, "Hang on a minute, the only people that are circumcised that we are aware of are the Jews, but you control the Jews. You have power over them. And if it really bothers you that you think that this is going to happen, we can round them up and we can kill them." At that point in time, when he was having that conversation, a messenger came in that was sent by one of the kings of Busra, who was under the control of the Roman Empire. And he walked in and he said, we have captured a Bedouin, an Arab, who is a sheep herder. And if you like, you can question him about what is happening in his area. So they brought him into the palace in Aelia where he was staying. And obviously they didn't speak the same language. So they had a translator. So Heraclius, the Caesar, said to the translator, ask him what is happening in his area. And so this Bedouin explained that there was a man from the Quraysh who is now claims to be a prophet, and he is spreading the message of his so-called God and is inviting people to this religion, this new religion. So this kind of affirmed Heraclius's belief in terms of what he saw. And he said, strip this man naked and I want to see, are these people circumcised? And so when they had done this, they found that he was circumcised. And this gave him the affirmation that he needed. So then Heraclius said, I need more information about this because this is really beginning to bother me. So he called upon the police. So the leaders of the police of his state, he said, go into Syria and I want you to find the people from this land and round them up. But don't find anyone, find people from this man's tribe. Now, just going back a little bit, Abu Sufyan was explaining in a hadith after he became Muslim. He said, when we had this treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, we wasn't 100% comfortable about our deal with him, and we weren't 100% comfortable about whether he would attack us or not. But my people of the Quraysh, they would completely trust me with all of their goods to take them and to trade. And prior to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, we suffered very severe economic loss because of the battles against the Muslims. So we had to uplift their spirit and we had to resume our economic trades. So the people entrusted me with their goods, their leathers, their whatever goods that they had that they were willing to trade, the pots and pans they had that they made. I took them and we took a journey. And when we took our journey from Mecca past Medina, I was apprehensive, not knowing whether Muhammad Sallallahu and his army would attack us, but they didn't. So we traveled all the way to Syria. So we got to this region of Syria where we do our trade. So what they do is they travel north and they get to the area of Roman Empire in Syria and they trade there, and then they make their way to the Gaza Strip in Palestine. Okay, that's where there are two areas of their trades that they do, and then they make their way back down again. So he explained that we were in Syria at the time when Heraclius had dispatched the police force into Syria, who came through all of the inns where we were staying to try and find some of us. So when they came in, they were calling upon us saying, which one of you are from Arabia? And some of us were, we are from Arabia. And then they said, so which one of you are from this region related and associated with this man? And they said, this group of them. And there was, as Abu Sufyan described, he said, there were about 30 of us. And he said, we are those people. So they took us and they said, Heraclius wants to see you. Now they're already in Palestine. So they went to Hims. They went to Aelia in Jerusalem and they met him there. Now listen to this conversation that happens between Heraclius and these Arabs. They come into the courtyard, into the palace, and Heraclius has his interpreter and he says, ask them, are they all associated or know this man who claims he's a prophet? And they said, yes, they all know him. Then they said, but which one of them is the closest to him in relationship? And they said, is this man Abu Sufyan with us? So he said to Abu Sufyan, you come forward and I want you to sit or stand in front of your companions. So he was in front and they were all behind. He then said to the interpreter, when I ask this man any questions about the prophet or about this man Muhammad, if he lies, I want you to raise your hands. That way he doesn't know which one of you have grasped him up. And secondly, I will know that he's lying. Abu Sufyan was a man of credibility. And he said, I wanted to do nothing but lie about Muhammad, to completely discredit him in front of this king, this leader. But what I didn't want to do is destroy my own reputation amongst my people. Because if I stood there and I lied about Muhammad, they would think about me. My own people who were there would think about me. What kind of man are you, Abu Sufyan? That if you lie about him, tomorrow you'll lie about us. And if there was any problems, whether we had some trade deal issue or something going on, we would never call upon you because we know you're a liar. So Abu Sufyan knew, and he was conscious of this, and he wanted to only speak the truth. So he was a little bit stuck in a situation where he wanted to try and not give Muhammad that credibility, but also be sure that he didn't kind of discredit or lie about him that would ruin his own reputation. So Abu Sufyan comes forward and Caesar says, bring Abu Sufyan close to me and move his companions back. Then he said, and so we'll keep the interpreter out of this conversation. Let's just assume they can speak the same language. Heraclius, Caesar, says to Abu Sufyan, how do you regard this man in terms of his lineage amongst yourself, amongst your people? What do you think about his lineage? Abu Sufyan responds, he is of good lineage. Why? Because he's from the same lineage as him, from the Quraysh. Has any one of your people made any claims as he has made prior to him coming? Has anyone previously to the time when Muhammad come, has anyone else claimed that he's a prophet? He said, no one has done this. Was any of his forebearers, any one of his ancestors kings? He said, none of them were kings. Is it your chiefs who are his followers, or is it your poor, the powerless? He said, it's the powerless. None of our kings, none of our leaders would follow him. Now, Abu Sufyan's thinking, if I make it, obviously this is great, because if I make it out like the poor, the weak, and the needy, and the pathetic are following him, it shows that the smarter ones are not following him. But Heraclius knew what he was asking. So is it your chiefs that follow him, or is it the powerless? No, it's the powerless that follow him. Okay. Are they increasing in number, or are they decreasing? Abu Sufyan said they're increasing. Do any of his followers apostatize in anger at his faith after adopting his religion? Nope. No one has left this man's religion. Did you accuse him of telling lies prior for his making his claim? Was he ever known to you as a liar before he claimed he was a prophet? No. Does he betray anyone? No, he doesn't. But we are in truth, and we don't know that what he is doing now. So this is the only one little angle that Abu Sufyan said that he felt that he could try to discredit him. When Heraclius had asked him, does he betray? And he said, no, but we are in agreement with him, i.e. the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, but we don't know whether we can trust him or not. This is the only one that he could infer in the conversation in a form of negativity against the Prophet Muhammad. Okay. Have you battled with him? Have you fought him? Yes. And how did your fighting go with him? The warfare between us sometimes favored us, and other times it favored him. What is it that he commands you to do? Abu Sufyan replies, he tells us that we should worship one God alone. He said that we should not associate any partners with him and abandon what our forefathers used to say. He orders us to pray. He orders us to be truthful, and he orders us to maintain our relationship with our families. So Caesar then tells the translator, tell him, I asked you about his lineage, and you claim that he is of high lineage. So now Caesar is giving his summary. Messengers are sent among their people only through nobility. Let me make that clear to you. One of the signs of a prophet is that he will come from a family lineage where there has been no corruption or illegal relationships between a man and a woman. So nowhere in that lineage is there a child that is born out of wedlock. So that is one of the signs. Muhammad's whole lineage was a very clean lineage. He then went on to say, I asked you, Abu Sufyan, whether anyone else among you had made any claims before him. And you said, no. And if anyone has said the same before him, I would have said he was imitating him. I asked you whether any of his forebearers were kings. Any one of his predecessors were kings. You said no. If one of them had ruled, if any one of Muhammad's forefathers were ruled, I would have said he is a man seeking his father's kingdom, that he was looking for some benefit. But you didn't say that he had any kings in his family. So he's not trying to seek a benefit that his ancestors used to have. I asked you whether you accused him of lying before he made his claims. And you said, we have never accused him of being a liar until he became a prophet. He said, I then knew that this was not someone who would tell lies to people or lie about God. I asked you whether his people, his leaders, or the powerless would follow him. You said the powerless follow him, not your leaders. They are the ones who do follow the prophets. It's not the leaders. The ones who follow the truth are always the one who are powerless, the weak, and the needy. SubhanAllah, you know what I think of that? I think about today. If you look today, look at the pattern. Those who are doing well, those who are comfortable with their life, those who think they've got everything, they're the ones who don't give a damn about Islam. In general. In general, those who need the deen, those who have nothing, those who are humbled, they're the ones who follow. He then went on to say, I asked you whether his supporters are increasing or decreasing. You said that they are increasing in numbers. And that is the way, if the faith is true, it will come into fruition, it will grow. That is a sign of a prophet's religion. I asked you whether any of his supporters later renegaded, turned against him after becoming displeased with his religion. And you said, as far as you're concerned, you haven't seen anyone turn against him after adopting his religion. And he said, that is how it is with a true faith of God, when joy with it pervades the people's hearts, when a religion that comes from God will never leave people's heart if they understand it fully and completely. So they've never left. Then I asked you whether he betrays. You said no. Similarly, every prophet that came before, they do not betray. And I asked you what he orders you to do. And you told me that he said, worship one God, to associate no partners with him, not to worship idols, to pray, to be truthful, and to be good to your family. If what you say is true, then this man, Muhammad, will have dominion, control over the land beneath my feet. And I knew he was going to come, but I did not think he would be one of you. If I knew I could reach him, I would rush to meet him. And if I was there with him now, I would wash his feet. He then called one of the men who had the letter that was dispatched to Heraclius by Muhammad ﷺ. And he called this, and then he opened up the letter and he read this letter out to Abu Sufyan. He said, this is what he wrote. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, from Muhammad, the servant of God and his messenger and guidance. To Heraclius, the leader of the Byzantines, peace be upon him who follows the guidance. I invite you to Islam. Accept it, and you will be safe, and God will give you double reward. If you turn away, then yours will be the sin of the al-Arisian, which is the Bedouins or the people or the peasants. Moreover, O people of the scriptures, agree to nothing, agree to a joint statement with us that we will worship only one God but Allah, and we will associate nothing with him, that some of us will not take others as masters besides God, and if they turn away, say, bear witness that we are Muslims. Abu Sufyan said the moment that Heraclius read this out, now remember, in his court there was everyone there, even his own ambassadors, he said it was a massive big uproar, and let me explain to you why. Even though Heraclius was a very knowledgeable person and he read a lot of the scriptures, Heraclius, when he had received this letter, he had made contact with an old colleague of his that he used to study back at when he was at university, let's say, who was also knowledgeable about the scriptures. So when he was in Syria, before he went to Jerusalem, he sent a message. When he arrived in Aliyah, the message came back from his colleague in terms of referring back to this man Muhammad and the scriptures. When that letter came back, that letter affirmed to Heraclius that this man is the truth. This man Muhammad is the truth, and he matches what is written in our scriptures, and also matches to the description of the location where he is about to come. Subhanallah, look at this. Today, we talk about this in our conspiracy theories. We talk about in our debates with different religions about the religion of Islam. We are now talking about the Antichrist to come. We are now talking about the emergence of Al-Mahdi. Everyone is talking about this, and everyone has reference to all of this in their own scriptures. Everyone has their own references. Even the polytheists, even the idol worshippers have some sort of reference to the end of days. This is similar to what happened then. They're now talking about the emergence of a prophet. Now the emergence of the prophet come, and now they are prepared and they believe in him. We are now talking about, we're almost like in a parallel situation, an identical situation 1400 years ago with these people. But look at us, the ignorance in us, that the signs are given to us. We are already Muslims. We're already told to believe that Al-Mahdi is coming, the Dajjal is coming, the signs of the day of judgment are coming, and it's so close. Yet we, as Muslims, we ignore it. We acknowledge it, but we ignore it. And we don't behave like those people that are getting ready to meet their Lord. We behave like those people that the Quran describes when you get risen up, when you got waken up on the day of judgment, you'll walk around like zombies. And what does that mean? That all you do, you wake up, you grind the grill, you do the same thing day in, day out, doing the same stuff, going to work, making your money, spending it, looking forward to your holiday, making sure kids get their education, moving on with life, etc., etc. And what have you done? Today I was talking to one brother about just this, that subhanallah, work, it overpowers us. We get depressed with the work. And I said to him, God, can you just imagine if we never had Islam in our life? If we didn't have Islam in our life, look what we're doing. All we're doing, we go to work, we dial in, we go to the office, we get beaten up for a little bit of paper money. We get abused, we work hard, we have nothing in our life for a bit of piece of paper money that all it's going to give us is some material good that's going to give us a little bit of satisfaction for a very temporary time. We could buy a holiday with it. We could buy a brand new phone with it. We could buy a brand new car with it. And then once you have this, the enjoyment goes. If we didn't have Islam, God, what a misery. But at least with the deen, we know in parallel, we walk with this struggle with Islam. And with that, we get the reward. So here, Heraclius had already got confirmation from his friend that this is the man. So when Abu Sufyan heard this uproar, Abu Sufyan left, he was dismissed. And Abu Sufyan, he clapped his hand, he told his people, let's leave. When they walked out, he said to his companion, this Muhammad, his affairs has got to such a point where even he scares the king of those of pale skin. And what he means by that, he is saying that even these people who've got nothing to do with the Arabian Peninsula, he has reached out to them, and even now they are scared of him, or they are convinced that he would prevail. And eventually Abu Sufyan said, it was this thing that happened with Heraclius that made me realize maybe Muhammad is the truth. This was the beginning where for Abu Sufyan, his heart started to open up to the acceptance towards Islam. In the meantime, Heraclius, what does he do? After getting all of this affirmation, getting this confirmation from his colleague, talking to Abu Sufyan, he calls all of his leaders. He calls a parliamentary assembly. He calls them in, and now in his assembly, he's standing at the top looking down at them. And there's hundreds of them. He orders the soldiers to lock the door. And he says to his men, you have heard the information. You have seen this letter. This man, Muhammad, is truly a prophet. And my advice to you is that we should follow him and accept his religion. The moment he said this, his leaders went into berserk mode. What are you saying? Are you mad? And they quickly ran for the door to get out so they can get the message out to say that Heraclius has defaulted. But as they tried to get out, they couldn't. The doors were locked. At that moment of time, just look at this. Heraclius, Caesar, was convinced that Muhammad ﷺ was the prophet. He displayed that in articulate that by saying, if he was here or I could get to him, I would wash his feet. But the fact that all of his leaders turned against him at that moment of time, it put a fear of the dunya in his heart, which made him give up that opportunity to follow Muhammad ﷺ. Heraclius said, when I saw them run off, I panicked. And I said, stop, all of you stop. I only said this to test your faith of your own belief. And you have passed the test. So I was just testing you. What went through Heraclius's mind, what went through his heart was, oh my God, if I adopt this religion of Islam, I lose everything. I lose my power. I lose my control. I effectively lose my money. I lose my cars. I lose my children. I lose my wife. I lose my job. I lose everything that impacts you and me. And he didn't make that move. Some of us, we go to this trap all the time. We will not pray. And I'll give this example time. We will not pray at work because we feel, I don't want to give them the impression that I'm a terrorist or I'm an extremist, or I don't want to be seen like I'm different from Dave and John because the boss is going to think I'm different. I'm willing to go to the pub with them to get in with them so I can move through that promotion for the dunya. But I'm too scared to say to them, I need to go to Jummah. It's the same thing what he had done. He was not willing. He did not realize, had he given this up, Allah would have given him eternal bliss in the akhirah. But he folded. So this was a situation for Heraclius, that he was, when the message went out to him, this is as far as he got with that religion. The message was there, he was convinced, but it wasn't enough. Muhammad ﷺ also dispatched, not just to him, but everyone that was under him, the kings and the leaders. So he also sent messages out to the kings of the Christians in other regions as well. And again, he was inviting them with the same letter. But the most interesting one was his letter that went to the Persian Empire. So we talked about now the Roman Empire. Now we go to the other empire. So now he's like saying, if Muhammad ﷺ was with us today, he sends it to America. Then he sends a letter to China. And then he sends it to Russia. And you get different responses. So now Muhammad ﷺ, he sends Shuja bin Wahab radiallahu anhu as a dispatcher with the letter to Khosrow. Now, in Persia. Now, Khosrow, you got to remember, he is a piece of work. This guy is an arrogant individual. If you've seen the movie 300 and they show you Xerxes and his character, this guy would kill and slaughter people for his entertainment. So you can just imagine Shuja bin Wahab was a little bit apprehensive, but he said, for me, there's only two paths. It's a path I go and I give him the message and I go back to Allah to get back to my prophet, or I will go straight to Allah. So he knew this could be a one-way road for him. So Shuja bin Wahab, he makes his way to the land of Persia, and as he gets there, he says to the guards there that he has a letter that he wants to keep to Khosrow. They tried to take the letter off him. He said no. And this was interesting. He said, no, I will give this letter myself as my prophet had ordered me. So what was interesting about that statement was whenever the Sahabi get an instruction from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would take the literal instruction. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells Shuja bin Wahab, you take this letter and you give it to Khosrow. He took that order. Just like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, when you get to Banu Qurayza, pray your Asr. And that's why some of these Sahabi, they did not pray Asr until they got there, even though it was Isha time. This is one element of Sharia, but the main essence of that was, look how they loved Muhammad so much that they don't care if their life is in danger. They knew by saying to these soldiers, no, I will give it myself, that he would get a slap, get beaten up, maybe even get tortured. He didn't care. He just wanted to obey the Prophet ﷺ. And look at us today. Muhammad ﷺ says to us, I want you to establish your salah. I need you to pray your salah. And we ignore him. We know it's time to pray. We don't pray. He wants us to be good to our parents. We don't obey him. These are the men, for little things like that, they would follow him to the T, and yet Rasul Pak orders us to do the most important things, and yet look at us, we don't care. Just compare your attitude to those Sahabi. Just compare your attitude today, your persona, in the way you have that relationship with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you can see now how far we are from the Islam. And then we ask ourselves the question, why does Allah not favor us? Why is our situation so bad? Why are the Muslims being tortured everywhere? Why are the Muslims being rampaged everywhere? Why do the Muslims have no economic power? Why do we not have all the jobs? Because you're stubborn and you're ignorant. Because you were given the truth and you threw it back in Allah's face. Why else would that be the case? So Allah says he will not change the circumstances of the people unless they change what is within themselves first. You want to change your circumstance? Change yourself. You got the truth? Go follow the truth. If you don't know where that truth is, go find it. It's probably sitting in your cupboard. Open it up, start reading it and studying it. Until then, you will never ever get scorned. You will never get sakina. You will never ever get comfort in your life. Allah will fulfill your life with distress and anxiety. So this is very important for us. So he then goes in and Shuja bin Wahab hands over the letter to Khosrow. Khosrow opens it up. And the first thing he reads is this. This is a letter in the name of Allah from Muhammad, the servant and the messenger of God, to Khosrow, the leader of Persia. He did not even read past that point. He was fuming and he tore the letter up. Why? He said, how dare this man mention his name in the letter above my name? How dare he talk about himself before he even mentions me? My name should be at the top. And he completely enraged him. Shuja realized immediately, this guy's off the rockers. He's lost the plot. I need to get out of here. My job is done. He quickly left, jumped on his horse and went, while Khosrow was throwing a complete fit. After Khosrow calmed down, he said, where is this man? Bring him back. I want to have a discussion with him. Who is this man that sent me this letter? So he realized, the soldiers went, Shuja had gone, went past him, and he was on his way back to Medina. So they went to try and find him and they could not find him. Shuja went back to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is what happened. I went there, I gave him the letter. He read the first few lines and he tore it up. What did Muhammad ﷺ say? He said, may Khosrow tear up his own kingdom. May Allah tear up his kingdom. And now remember these words. So the actual letter, when you read it, said this: in the name of God, the most merciful and the most beneficial, from Muhammad, the messenger of God, to Khosrow, the leader of the Persia. Peace be upon those who follow the guidance. He never says peace be upon you. He said peace those who follow the guidance. You don't follow the guidance, there's no peace upon you. Believe in God and his messenger, and bear witness that there is no God but God, who is unique and without associates, and that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. I call upon you with God's invitation. I am God's messenger to all people, to warn all who live that the word of God bears witness against all unbelievers. And if you accept Islam, you'll be secure. And if you refuse, then the sin of the Magus refers to the fire worshippers and the Persian self-styled kind of like prophet who lived sort of like a millennium before Isa bin Maryam. The sin of the Magus will be upon you. When obviously Khosrow heard the first few lines, he ripped up, tore it up, and that was it, left him at it. So what does Khosrow do? Khosrow sends a message to the king of Yemen. So at the map I showed you down there, he sends it because Yemen is closer to the region where he needs to go to. And he says to the king there, and his name is Badam. He's the governor of Yemen. He says to him in the letter, Badam, I want you to dispatch 2 strong men with a letter from me to this man, Muhammad. Go find him. Okay. So he dispatches 2 individuals, one man by the name of Qarqara and another one by the name of Badawi. So these 2 men take a letter as consider them to be like FBI agents being sent by Badam. They make their journey and they travel from Yemen. Obviously, the first place they hit is Makkah. They go past Makkah, they end up in Taif. When they end up Taif, they said to the men of Taif, we are after this man who claims that he is a prophet. Where can we find him? They were so overwhelmed. They said they knew who these men were. They're from the powerful empire of Persia. They thought to themselves, you're going to find him further north in Medina and few weeks travel. And they thought to themselves, great, now we don't have to worry about getting rid of him. The Persian Empire is now after him. Forget about the local tribes. Now the great empire is after him. Now we can be thankful that we're going to get rid of this man, Muhammad. So they make their way all the way to Muhammad Sallallahu. When they get there, they come into Medina. Medina is a hustle and bustle. They walk in, they ask people, where can we find Muhammad? They said he's over here, over there in the masjid. They walk in and they find Muhammad Sallallahu alone. And they go over and they meet him. So Muhammad Sallallahu, when he sees them, he says, what can I do for you? They say that we are the Shahanshah, the king of, we come from the Shahanshah, the king of the kings, who is Khosrow. And he has written to our leader, of Yemen, Badam, ordering him to send you back to him. So we have come as police, dispatched by Badam from the great leader Khosrow. And he has he has ordered that you come with us. And if you come with us without any issues, then we will write something, Badam will write something in favor of your defense to Persia, to Khosrow, and he will take it easy upon you. And if you don't, you know what Khosrow is like. He's the kind of person, he will skin you alive, yeah, and he will burn you. So they went on to say, and he will come to your land and he will kill all your people and he will leave your land, lay waste to all your country. So Muhammad Sallallahu, he said to them, looked at them and he said, why do you look the way you look? And the way why he said that is because they used to shave their heads and they used to have these very long mustaches, and he hated that look. He said to them, why do you shave off your beards and just leave your mustaches intact and shave your heads? They said, because our Lord, meaning Khosrow, he orders us to do this. And this is where the hadith about the beard comes. One of the hadiths is, Muhammad said, well, my Lord Allah orders me to spare my beard and cut off my mustache. So this is where that hadith comes from, if people want to know. There's many others as well that's been repeated. Now he says to them, leave now and come back tomorrow and I'll give you my decision. So then the news came back to Muhammad from Allah. Now Allah sends a message now via Angel Jibreel. And he said, Angel Jibreel said to Muhammad that whilst these men are here, back in Persia, Khosrow has just lost his power to his son, Shirawi. Shirawi has taken power by force and he has killed his father. And he has killed him on such and such night on this particular time. So this is great information Muhammad had. The next day, the two men come back and they responded. Muhammad says to the two men, I'm going to tell you something. Do you know that your leader, Khosrow, has been killed by his son? They responded back and said, do you know what you're saying? How dare you say such a thing? We don't hate you so much as that. Shall we write back to our king Badam and tell him what you just said to us? He said, tell him. And say to him that my faith and my power will attain that reached by Khosrow and will ultimately encompass all creatures. My religion will go past what Khosrow has gone to, and it will go to every single human being in this world. So they were like shocked. This man is very confident of himself. But at the same time, Muhammad was a peace and loving individual, and he gave them each one a present. So he gave to Qarqara a belt that was decorated with gold and silver that was given to him by another king. And then he also gave a gift to the other man, and they both left and they returned to Badam. So they went back to Yemen and they went to their governor and they told him what had happened. He said, when we went to see him, he just went and told us that such and such has been killed. The Persian leader has been killed by his son. So he was like, okay, I'll tell you what, let's not send any message back. Let's wait until the news comes, if anything of this or what he said is true. Soon after, not too long after that, a letter is sent to Badam from the empire of the Persians. And it was a letter written by Shirawi, the son of Khosrow, which said, I have killed Khosrow, my father, and I did so because of the anger in Persia. Because what was happening was Khosrow became so mentally disturbed, he was just getting out of control. He was thinking he's God. He was displeasing his leaders and the noblemen and the poor and etc. And his son said it got to a point that people couldn't take it anymore. So I had no choice but to kill him to seize the power. So I did so because of the anger in Persia and at his killing of his nobility and having them stabbed in their mouths. So what Khosrow used to do is that he used to torture some of his noblemen. If he felt that they were disobeying him or they did not give him money or tax or did not do anything, what he would do, he would take a knife and he would stab them in the mouth. So he said, because of this, I had no choice but to kill him. And therefore, now I want you to understand, I am in power, and any instructions that my father has given you in regards to this man, Muhammad, forget it. Leave him alone until you hear further instructions from me. Immediately, you can imagine, Badam, when he hears this news, he is shocked. Then he said to Qarqara and he said to Abadawi, look at that. There is no doubt this man is a prophet. How would he know this? How would he know this? And it came later on that actually Badam actually became Muslim, and Muhammad actually made him the leader, the governor of Yemen. because Muhammad would always keep people in power, in position, who know their land and know their people very well. So here you can see that during that period, that even though they had sent people to go and attack Muhammad ﷺ and to arrest him, that how the message of Muhammad ﷺ to these lands had spread. And as a result of that, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided Muhammad ﷺ in taking that. And after that point, just to finish off, his son was the last of the leaders, because Muhammad ﷺ had said in a hadith that after Khosrow, there will be no one, and after this man, there will be no one. It will be Islam that will be established. And we know that after that point, that when Muhammad ﷺ has spread the dawah and he sent the message out to the people, that he had already seeded the dawah, he had already seeded the message of Allah to these people. And Allah Ta'ala gave him victory many years after that, that was then established by the following Sahabi of Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar bin Al-Khattab, and Hazrat Uthman bin Affan radiyallahu anhu. Jazakallah khair.